Okay, folks, it's 5 o'clock now on March the 28th, 2002. The Bastrop EDC Board reserves the right to convene into executive session at any time during this meeting regarding any agenda item in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, the Government Code. First off, do we have any public comments?
No, sir, we do not.
Great. Okay, thank you. All right, regular business and presentations, 3.1. We need to welcome the new board member, Lyle Nelson, to the BEDC board. Welcome, Lyle.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're glad to have you on board. All right, section 3.2, approval of meeting minutes from the regular BEDC board meeting of February the 28th, 2022, and the special BEDC board meeting of March the 7th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Move to approve.
Chair, I have a comment before we vote, and that is just a clarification, and it's really petty. It may not need to change anything on the meeting minutes, but on the March 7th, it implies that you are filling the chair to the rest of the term and for the unexpired term. And I just want to make sure, and the attorney may want to comment on this, all officers are elected on, everybody has a one-year term. So everybody, all three offices will be up on October 1st. Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion?
I think we have a second.
You had a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, 3.3, receive presentation of financial reporting provided by City of Bastrop's Chief Financial Officer for the period ending February 2022. Hello.
Good evening, and I think there's a PowerPoint, but I'm not sure where the clicker is. All right, very good. All right, so I'll make this quick. It's not, it's all good news. So total revenue up to this point through February 28, 2022 is $2.4 million. Total expenses is almost $657,000. The February revenue, I did put a note in here. We did get the gain on the close of the Mocha Venture property, and so that's why the revenue is so much more in February. Next slide is sales tax, which is your #1 revenue. So we always keep an eye on that, but at this point it's running very strong. I have a note in here that originally we budgeted 10% over. We're actually running 20% over our forecast. So I'm going to touch on this in a few minutes, but obviously that's very strong at this point. The expenditures, next slide. Yeah, there you go. So total forecasted expenditures up to this point is a little over $900,000, and we have spent not quite $650,000. So we are running very below our forecast in expenditures. Next slide has to do with capital outlays, and we really haven't seen a lot of expenses in some of these projects. Really, all we've seen is some engineering costs, and so that is what's reflected on this page. Next slide is our 380 development agreement. This is the Burleson Crossing agreement. I do want to point out that because sales tax is running so high, this budget, we will either have to amend the budget or at least reclass some of the budget, because this is looking like it may be around $400,000. But the good news is it will probably finish and pay out this year. So this will be the last year. Might trickle into 23 a little bit, but I'm really anticipating that because of the escalated sales tax revenues, it's going to finish this year. And then just to point out on the debt obligation page, this still has the Roscoe loan in it. That didn't actually close till it actually closed the very beginning of March. So it'll be reflected in next month's report. If y'all have any questions. Strong.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Looks like you're up also on 3.4.
Stay here. And
there we go. So this is a received presentation of the BEDC's portion of the annual comprehensive financial report for period ending September the 30th, 2021, presented by you.
So the auditors came and did a holistic audit, and EDC's transactions are just incorporated into that audit review, along with all aspects of y'all's accounting reports. I did pull out, I'm not going to go over every single one of these pages, but I tried to extract from the report, it's a very long report, I tried to extract what the references for the Economic Development Corporation so that you had that understanding and that knowledge and what the auditors say about you are considered a component unit of the city, and so you'll see that term multiple times during the report. The audit report did give an unqualified opinion, which is the best opinion you can get in an audit report, and so we always like to see that. On page 23, I'm going to go with the top number, not the bottom number. You'll see that the EDC ended the year with total assets of about $10.5 million. The majority of that is your cash and cash equivalents. There is the $3.9 million that is capital assets. $3 million of that is the 921 main building, just to point that out. So that will be coming off this year. And then if you go to the next page, total liabilities is 5.9. So you ended the year with a net position of 4.7. You will notice that on my financial reports, we actually use a working capital net position, not a, so the numbers that they report don't always match the numbers that are in the financial report because we actually use a working capital. On page 25, this is just where it shows the revenues and expenditures. Total expenditures for fiscal 21 was 2.6. And when you flip over, total revenues were 3.8. So that's a net change of 1.2 million positive. So we brought in that much more than we expended. Flipping over to page 29, this is just a breakdown of EDC's investments between certificate of deposits, your money market account, Tex Pool, and Texas Class. That's where the 5.9 million comes from. And then on the next page, it breaks out your capital assets. So your land, building, that's pretty much all the EDC has on their books. And then on the next page, there's a summarized detail of your debt. And then on page 32, there's actually a little bit more of a detail of your debt broken out into the actual issuances. On page 33, we did have a restatement, and I wanted to explain what this was. There was still a building that was being carried on EDC's books. It had to do with Garments to Go. It's an agreement that went far back. And that actually was resolved and closed out in 2019, but that was still on your books, so we restated that and took that off. It was a very complicated agreement between the EDC, the city, and the Garments to Go. So that was what that 487 adjustment was for. And that is it. If you have any questions for me.
Any questions from anyone? Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, we will move on then to 3.5, discussion and consideration of all matters incident and related to calling for the redemption of certain outstanding obligations of the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation, including the adoption of a resolution pertaining thereto. Bill, I'm going to let you take this.
Yeah, so we've looked over, and as we went through the books and what we had and what we're planning to do, we did pay off the Roth loan that was associated with the 921 building. We mentioned we would look into the next level of debt. And as Tracy's indicated, actually the best is page 32 of the report shows that the sales tax revenue bond series 2018 can be redeemed without penalties. It's a 3.39% loan, right at about $1 million. Essentially would save us about $240,000 worth of interest payments on its duration. And based on our good standing and good condition currently, as well as lack of director and not progressing on the other items, I think it's more than appropriate this time to probably go ahead and retire that. The revenues of sales tax are coming in and would more than replace that over time. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and pay that off.
I'm sorry? Yeah. Seriously, there it is, sorry.
Just say one
Oh,
thing,
please.
Just to clarify, just so I know what I'm doing on my end, the proceeds from the 921 main sale did go into the tax pool account. That's where we paid the Roscoe loans. It's probably where I would look to pay this out as well.
And Tracy, while you're up there, since you know more about bonds at least than I do, I'm sure, is there any downside to paying them off?
I don't think so.
Does it do anything to our rating? Does it do any?
No,
So, no negative to it at all. All right, thank you.
just savings.
I like that. Well, good. Well, then let's entertain a motion to approve the resolution then. Resolution would be 2022-0006.
I move to approve resolution 2022-0006.
Any discussion? Oh, sorry, you can second.
Second.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion then? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Good, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, we will move then right on to 3.6, discussion and reconsideration regarding the Main Street Program Support Agreement between the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation and the City of Bastrop. And Jen, I'm going to let you take this one.
Thank you. I'd actually like to read a statement and kind of put some thought around this particular agreement. So with that said, within the City of Bastrop policy that the City Council recently passed, the BEDC, it has some areas in which we're trying to improve. One of those areas is performance. So item number 3B within that policy addresses that, and specifically the Main Street program. The BEDC is in support of funding the program. However, it's critical that the BEDC also provide metrics and reporting, item number 5 in the policy, as well as ROI related to the projects we fund. In addition, the policy goes on to mention accountability. You're going to hear me say accountability a lot in the next several months. It's near and dear to my heart. And with that in mind, in the policy, it's actually item number 7, where the BEDC needs to articulate specific goals, project assessments, and reporting to determine the benefits to the community. Precedence has been set during the Main Street BEDC contract presentation that took place back in 2019, in which the Main Street program provided a detailed accounting of the program and how they would embark upon the required funding. So what they were going to do and how it was going to be funded. Also, given the promotional expense impact that the overall BEDC has, we have an allowance that is 10% of the BEDC revenue. That equals roughly $39,250, depending on how our revenue is going. As required by Texas Local Government Code 505.103, it's critical that these expenses are tracked carefully to ensure that promotional and sponsored events do not exceed that stated limit, that 10%. In addition, the BEDC does not wish to fund administrative expenses, as these should be already funded by the city. With the goal of accountability in mind, the BEDC would like to receive detailed quarterly accounting on how the monies are spent in order to receive reimbursement. In addition, comprehensive reporting from the Main Street program on the ROI related to the areas funded. With a quarterly reimbursement and reporting process, we limit the administrative overhead that a monthly reporting would require. With these measures, the BEDC adheres to the policy approved by the City Council requesting accountability, ROI, and reporting on how monies are spent. With this shared, we do have a Main Street Program Support Agreement between the BEDC and the City of Bastrop, which includes the requested funding of $50,000, along with the quarterly expenses paid out, which align to the designated categories within the agreement. All that remains is the signature of the city manager to move this forward. So my question to the board is this something that we should discuss? What questions do we have? And is there a way to actually get this moving forward?
So one of my first questions is, I'd like to know if the attorney has reviewed this agreement, because normally it's got a sign off on the attorney, and there wasn't one. So I don't know if Mr. Zeck's office, have you guys reviewed it? Okay.
Yeah, it was originally reviewed, and the original document is the one that was presented by Catherine to Paul back in October of last year.
Which brings me
Which
to
had
my
been-
other
which had
question,
been
which
reviewed.
is why is the terms are October 1st, 22 to September 30th of 24,
At
which
this-
means that that was the same dates that were presented last October, which left us with a one-year gap.
Yeah, so the idea of the concept was to be able to go back, take the original agreement as it was. Recommendation, we have Jen possibly sit with Paul again and find out why the original agreement was not acceptable to the city, and why then it became modified and mixed with other items. So when the new version, or the version that the city manager presented to us a few meetings ago, lumped in capital improvement service fee, and also had an audit fee in and some other items, and implied that we didn't have a service agreement, but the service agreement was already established for administrative service for the BEDC. So the legal recommendation at that point was do not construe that agreement with additional items that are not associated with that. So it comes back to the original, and the idea for the BEDC was to be able to go back to the original dates, have the agreement continue, and would allow us then to go back and even fund back to the beginning of the agreement. If we change the dates at this point, essentially we would take out 6 months worth of cost reimbursement back to the city,
No,
because we would end up with a date that would be mid-year rather than at the October.
I think you misunderstood my question. The existing agreement ran out on October 1st of 2021.
For the Main Street support.
Yes.
Yes, so there is no agreement currently.
And this.
For a Main Street agreement, there is no agreement.
I agree that the current Main Street agreement was 19 to 21. The proposed agreement that was presented last October is 22 to 24. So was it our intention to skip a year?
No, start on October 1st of 2022.
I do believe that was a typo. It was supposed to start October
Because the way it's
2021.
presented, there's a
Yes.
skip of 1 year.
Yes, former Chair Nash prepared that, so it's possible that she already had 22 in her mind and just got off by a year. So that's a good catch on Ms. Schrader's part, and I think that needs to be edited before we go further. But aside from that,
Right.
what are the next steps?
Okay, so thank you. I didn't think it was an
That was
intention to skip.
fiscal year
it.
22.
That's why I was trying to.
Got it.
And then the other thing, you've brought up the other support services agreement, and we got an email from Charlie Zeck on March 1st that said that that this is for staff and board's review only, and a formal discussion will occur at the next board meeting. But that may have been too late for the March 7th meeting, but I wondered why we were talking about Main Street and not talking about the edits that Charlie proposed, because I think that's the bigger agreement, and certainly resolving that may also be a good platform to resolve any issues with the Main Street at the same time. So I didn't know why the support services agreement that we got the attorney's comments on March 1st. I didn't share it with anybody because I was getting it as a board member, but I thought it was going to be on the on one of our next agendas. So I was surprised when this one came out and it wasn't on it.
So the recommendation that we had received at the board meeting, and I don't remember which date we received that. That was Paul's lumped up agreements with everything all in it, including a rewrite of the service agreement, which already existed. Stated that it expired or we didn't have it, but we did have a service agreement. When we look at the recommendation from the lawyer has recommended do not put those all together like was done. And then essentially that states to go back to the way that it was. If we wanted to go back and capture the few items that are specific to the city services to the BEDC, then we would go back and rewrite the agreement again. What we recommended in terms of expediency and moving forward was let's leave the service agreement as it is, that's already been signed by both parties, does not need to be changed. There's no reason to go back and change it unless we want to open up and have a different service agreement. The recommendation to move forward, as Jen was stating, was to then go back to the original plan, which was have the agreement for the Main Street project be rediscussed or reapproach Paul with that by Jen to then solidify that agreement, which was originally in October, then January, no reply until we had the grouped presentation from Paul. And so that would allow the Main Street to move forward. And then separate from that, we can have discussions about capital improvement management or capital project management on a case-by-case. As those projects come up, there's not a reason to have a global agreement at this point. The other items that were identified by the lawyer were things such as when they included the audit fee into the new consolidated agreement, there really isn't a reason to have an audit fee as a service. It's really an allocated expense, would just be allocated. So that recommendation was there. When they talked about some of the other, let's say, details about having open facilities and facilities available by the city provided to the BEDC in order that we could have our meetings, that's already happening. And what my recommendation was as we met an executive group was to address that in the next year's update of the service agreement, that we would capture some of the auxiliary items. So that was the thinking through where we are and how to expedite the agreements.
Well, I think the agreement that council unanimously approved and sent to BDC, which is what Mr. Zeck reviewed and had comments on March 1st, was based on the prior agreement. There wasn't, the policies hadn't been adopted. So we're trying to tie the new agreement with the policies, and that is a factual thing that has happened that didn't exist before. And I don't disagree with Mr. Zeck if he's recommending that the Capitol and the Main Street be pulled out of that agreement. It seems like, Chair, I would like to see, I really think, a conversation between Charlie and Alan. We could maybe straighten up both documents, and it would be great to have them reviewed by the attorney with the this document that you said was that the former chair signed was before the policies were put in place.
Well, I think both of those things can happen. I think that we can have the attorney, Charlie and Allen, go over it in theirs, but I also think it would be a good idea if we could have Vice Chair Jim also talk with the city manager to see if we can't get a little bit closer to it as well. So I think there's two different things that would like to go on, to take place.
That's correct.
So, and I think that's kind of what we had talked about, and I think they're both great ideas. I think we should just go ahead and get that done. I mean, we don't need a vote on it, we just need to ask if you would continue on with that. And then if you could take that message back to Charlie, that would be great, or I can give him a call, but since you're here representing, that would be great.
I'll let him know.
Super.
And I think that way staff, board can also, that way board. Sorry, that way the board intent from the changes can also be discussed with city side as well to make sure, and then once, probably the better approach is to work through that piece first and then take that to the attorneys. That way, substantively and policy-wise, whatever other legal issues might need to be sorted out, that can be the second step. So yourself and then city manager can have a meeting to sort out, the intent or additional revisions, and then legal can look at it, both Charlie and Alan.
Well, Charlie's already looked at it. I think if somebody who has the authority can forward that to Alan, I think that might be helpful, because some stuff may just automatically not be an issue based on the policy.
Yeah, it would just require one more once-over, I
Yeah.
think, by both sides,
But
attorneys.
The main reason I'm bringing that up is it's March. So if this comes back in April, we start having budget meetings in May. So we're kind of already working towards an October 1st start. So that's why I would like to see us continue to make improvements, just get this whole thing resolved.
Yeah, I think those are good ideas. So, Angela or Jean, do you have that where you could send it to Charlie and to Alan and get that part of it going? And then, Jen, if you can.
I'll contact Paul next week and actually set up a meeting with him, and so that we can knock this out as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may, could someone please share Mr. Zeck's thoughts on this so that I can have a little context as I'm reviewing this?
Okay. Bill, why don't you?
Yeah, Mr. Zeck's thoughts on this was that again, from the history point of view, this.
I don't mean to interrupt, I'd like to see his written documentation on that.
He just means he wants the email. He doesn't have the email.
I just need a copy. I don't need an explanation. I appreciate it.
I can forward that to him right now,
Angela,
if that's
get it.
okay.
Yeah.
No. Good. Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Section 3.7, discussion and possible action on an update on the Gummy Bears project, AKA Howard Designs LLC, that was tabled at the special board meeting on March the 7th, 2022. So I'm sorry. Yeah, we can, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Trey, you sent a letter early in the week kind of going over that thing?
Yeah,
So whoever,
yeah, so
do you
really,
want to come up and talk, or if Gene, if you want to talk about it?
yeah, so really quick, just like you said, staff didn't have a chance to come up and finish the conversation, so we wanted to make sure they had the opportunity to come back. They did send a memo that we passed along to you all as well, but just giving staff the opportunity to come and speak on behalf of the city.
Yeah, Trey, if you want to come up and comment.
Yeah, I actually I sent the memo out last Thursday, I believe, so you get it in your packet. Happy to answer any questions. We're going to talk a little bit about it in 3.8. I didn't realize they weren't going to be two items until I saw the agenda. They weren't going to be one item, sorry. But yeah, essentially we were just responding to some of the statements that were made throughout the Gummy Bear project. And I'm happy to answer any specifics. You have the packet, you have the memo. Is there any questions I can answer? Happy to do so.
Are there any questions on the memo that was turned in? Okay, I think we've all seen it. Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll go ahead and then move on to 3.8, update and discussion on BEDC funded.
Chair Spencer, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I happen to know that Mr. Howard has a presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it's because last time there was no clear, it wasn't clear as to what I think the board wanted to see. So he's got some numbers and some pictures and some things that he thought would.
I apologize.
okay?
I'm sorry. Please come up and if you have comments about this or clarification, thank you.
I didn't actually know that there was a response that was sent to you all, so I'm kind of blindsided again that my comments were said publicly and then the response was sent privately and I wasn't copied.
Mr. Howard, the response was a part of the packet that was posted publicly.
That's fine, but.
I just didn't want you to think anybody was doing anything privately. It's
My ignorance, but I just didn't know that there was a response until I thought it was happening today. You had asked for specifics about how we were spending money and what the accountability was, and so since we didn't have time last time, we just put together a quick little show to kind of give you all an idea of what we've done for each of the buildings. And so we've got the 292 industrial building that we turned into the Water Street Millworks, so that was a before and after picture. That construction is done. The CO was received, I think, on the 10th. We put $90,000 into that building, upgraded all of his electrical, firewall, all that stuff. He's added 2 full-time positions and increased his production and his payroll by 33%, and is anticipating more growth. He's got a big funnel started. So he's doing great, and that building's done, and we're closed out on that one. 402 Technology, there's some before pictures when we bought the building. As y'all know, it had sat there vacant for 4 or 5 years. We came in, we added 2,500 square feet to it. We upgraded the power from 200 amps to 800 amps. We ended up putting about $540,000 into it after the purchase. 14,500 square feet to 17,000 square feet. Officially received the certificate of occupancy on that one on the 24th. So those are both closed out. Since we started this project with y'all, we've increased production and sales 65%. Added 14 full-time positions, still hiring at least 2 or 3 more. Our payroll has increased approximately $500,000 a year with the benefits packages on top of that. The Water Street building downtown has kind of been hit a little bit with the economic changes to our costs, and so we've been originally going to do that all out of cash, and so now we're looking at financing some of the remodel on that, but it's still moving forward. As y'all know, the costs on everything have kind of skyrocketed, specifically in the last 6 months, but we're still moving forward. So these are some pictures of it once we gutted it and did the remediation on the 2 sides, and then the inside are some sketches that we did about before we got to the architectural design phase, which is now done, and we're just trying to make sure that before we submit for permits, we can actually build what we're trying to. So we're waiting for the builders to finalize their quotes based on whether we're going to push or pull any of our design concepts. So we've got 8 national and international artists signed on with the representation agreements ready to show with us. The website's being built out. Like I said, the building designs are complete, but those last 2 steps are contingent on trying to make sure, like I said, that we can afford what we're trying to build. And once we get into construction, it's a massive remodel, but it's still just a remodel, so we're anticipating 7 to 12 months once we can get started. So, just wanted to give y'all kind of a full update.
That was awesome. Is there any way we can get a copy of that? Great.
And I don't know, was there any other questions y'all had based on anything from last week or this week?
No, but I've got to say, I really appreciated the pictures. I really did.
Yeah, awesome.
Great. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, very nice. Okay. Okay, we'll do 3.8 now, update and discussion on BEDC funded projects presented by the city staff.
We had to do a clicker trade-off there. So quick update on some of the projects that are going on. I think Clint talked a whole lot about some of the same stuff I'm going to talk about, so maybe a whole lot shorter than we originally thought. But some of the projects update, the Bastrop River Loop's actually about 80 to 90% complete. It's currently on schedule, and we expect it to be final completion April of 2022. So things are moving right along. Just talked to TxDOT this morning. Everybody's excited about the project, and we're near completion. 402 Technology, like we discussed, this is the certificate of occupancy was pending. We did a fire final on 3/18. There was actually 5 deficiencies. 3 were corrected on site instantly. There were just a couple things blocking the access panels to the electrical, things like of that nature. There was 2 deficiencies. We actually went back on the 22nd. They were already corrected. And again, the CO was issued on March 24th. So again, you heard that from Clint. One of the examples where there just needed some, if you see the blown up circle there, I'll see if I can blow that up a little more. So it was very minor, just needed some fire caulking around wall penetrations, things of that nature. That was all corrected, and we're good to go. 292 Industrial, again, not much to talk about. You saw that The pictures Mr. Howard had were much better than mine. This is just an aerial view, but again, the certificate of occupancy was received 3/10/22. Again, as I understand, the asbestos abatement's been completed. We still have yet to see those building plans. I'm glad to hear that we're actually working through all the architectural features. Still like to offer that service like we talked about in the memo. Still happy to have a third party to help review. Still have staff walk through it. Right before we finalize that design, I'll be happy to reach out to Mr. Howard again after this meeting and reinforce that. But perhaps we can make sure that our communication's better than it was when the project started. The zoning concept scheme, I'm sure you're all aware, has been approved. We've had a pre-application meeting with Doucette Engineering. And the public improvement plans, we're still awaiting for them to be submitted. MoCA, we actually have seen nothing from them yet. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Their next steps, again, the EDC is working through the subdivision process. You guys are going to finalize the replat. Both you and MoCA will sign that. And then MoCA's portion will be actually the site development plan and the building permits once they take possession of the property and start working through that. And again, 406 South Jackson Street, we actually have a meeting with these folks again tomorrow. Held a pre-application on September the 9th, and we have a meeting about water and wastewater utility service there in the park. And hopefully they can get moving. Like I said, they have a final drainage and then a site plan improvement, and then they'll move into their building phase. So they actually have a little pre-treatment required they're going to talk about. So should be interesting stuff if you like that. Just some retrospective, and we talked a little bit about this today, which I think was a great conversation. Some of our previous projects, we had some in the industrial park, we've got Agnes Street, we've got the River Loop we're working on today, we've got Project Gummy Bears, and I was going through the list, I realized a lot of our issues were exactly what we talked about earlier, and that was the communication, project roles, things of that nature, and I really wanted to make sure that this was a positive message, because as I went back and read through the policy, you know, we're here to now implement, learn, and then correct as needed. So we want to make sure that we get this rolling moving forward. So we see that corrected version so that we can take a look at the Main Street contract, whether it's separate or approved or all part of the lump, doesn't matter. We just need to get moving and make sure that we get that underway. Again, part of the building Bastrop policy results. If you'll remember, a lot of this development and land use regulations happened in 2019, just to give you some history. Some of you are new, some of you are not. We actually put together a capital improvement project in 2020 through 2025. And then we had some recently adopted economic policy, which you're all aware of. And what we like about this is how the priorities were established. The strategic plan alignment, much like the mayor mentioned earlier. We do have some budget meetings. I would encourage you to come in and let's talk or attend those if you will. There's one on April the 5th where we'll talk about transportation and future water planning, which is exciting stuff if you like water planning. We'll also talk about on the 19th, the comprehensive plan. It's a good time to, I think, start weaving in and hear the thoughts of the city and the council and how those things will move forward together. So again, the project outcomes are defined early on, which I think is going to be excellent. And then I want to talk a little bit more again about some of the strategy and why it's important. We're all feeling the pinch from this rapid growth, and we're all feeling the rapid urbanization that's happening. And that pressure of the growing population is turning our systems, our water systems, our wastewater systems, our road networks, traffic, congestion, energy sustainability, all that stuff is happening. That's why I think it's super important that we, again, move forward. You also attend these meetings so we can start working this out. And what I like about the new policy is actually the added requirement for the coordination. So we're kind of looking forward to, I think, what's your next item. Go ahead.
So you used the term, we would like for y'all to come and hear these meetings. Who is y'all? The
Sorry.
board members here?
I think it'd be great if the board members could attend.
Staff members?
Love for the staff to attend,
Okay.
yes.
I just want to.
Yeah, I think I know that I would assume you have a committee that's working through some of the stuff now, right? And if they could attend or would like to view it online, I think that would be great. I just wanted to, again, mention, I think, the opportunity that we have moving forward, which is really what this is about.
So with that in mind, do you publish your schedule? We all have daytime jobs as well, so if we could have a schedule of when these meetings take place?
Yes, ma'am. They've been discussed at City Council. They're public meetings. They're on the April 5th and April 19th at 4 o'clock, and the subjects at each meeting. But we can certainly have, staff has access to that, and they can send that to the board members if you want a specific email on it.
Any meetings that are held related to the details of the different projects that are taking place that we could listen in and participate in?
For capital projects, there will be a meeting on the 19th. I don't know if it'll be super specific, but we're going to talk about how we approach that, which would be helpful with board input. And what I'll do is I'll send the strategic calendar to Angela and Jean, so you have that.
Oh, you bet.
And then we'll send you the April 5th agenda when it comes out this week. So we'll send that to you. You understand what's going to be on there. That'll be the first step. And again, I think this is just a good opportunity for us to continue to move forward. So it's really not about changing anybody's mind. It's just about making sure we're all having our own perspective.
I think we're very aligned in that, and we've got a topic on that later.
Yep.
So,
I agree. That's why I brought it up before. So again, this is short. It's sweet. Hopefully this update was helpful. Again, keep that in mind. We look forward to working with you and just doing community building, and that's the end. I'll take any questions you might have, if there are any.
Probably wouldn't hurt to have an update on the anticipated completion of water treatment plant 3. Sorry, wastewater.
So the current, so we do that quarterly in the quarterly report, but I just had a meeting with them on Friday. They are currently sent in a narrative where they were discussing a 90-day extension. They are contracted for August. That puts them in December. Again, we're going to review that, see if it makes sense. I'm not sure that is, I noticed in their narrative there was only 19 rain days. I'm having trouble finding 90 days in there. I haven't gotten through the entire thing yet. But yeah, we'll be glad to keep you up to date on that. And again, we do that in every quarterly report.
Also, sorry, have you had any update on Corex? I know you've talked to them a couple times. Do you have anything worth sharing with us?
I believe our next meeting is in April. It's part of the staff.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have not spoken to them, but there is a meeting this month. Any more questions?
Questions from anyone? Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Trey, could we get a copy of that presentation as well for our
You got it.
files? Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to skip 3.9 and talk about that later when we return from executive session. So we will go ahead and go to 3.10. That's discussion and possible action on BEDC staffing. And Jen, if you'll.
absolutely. This is near and dear to my heart. I've been working with the BEDC staff and trying to figure out how we can help them from a back office perspective. The board discussed filling an executive administrative assistant role and a CEO position, but also agreed to create 2 additional positions, such as a project manager and a project facilitator. The board approved these roles in FY 2022 on the budget on August 16, 2021, which included 2 additional positions for 6 months of the current fiscal year. I've been in conversations with a temporary agency recommended by the city of Bastrop's HR department. The idea there is to stay aligned with the city HR department in terms of how they use staff and temporaries and things of that nature. What we would like to do is secure a temporary and immediate front office assistance while the BEDC embarks on filling the executive assistant role that's already been approved and budgeted. I'd also like to propose moving forward with securing support for that temporary position in the front offices while we go and search for an administrative assistant to hire. In addition to that, I would like to also propose moving forward to fill the second position. We'd like to consider supporting a marketing communications role instead of a project facilitator role, as previously suggested. The role of the marketing communications manager would be to develop and execute a results-driven, multi-platform communication strategy and plan in line with the BEC brand direction while reflecting the City of Bastrop's messaging and priorities. So the idea of this marketing communications person would be to bring the two organizations together. When we do marketing, branding, PR, we're actually aligned. With that in mind, I would like to propose moving forward on this with securing a temporary person for our front office staff while we hire that administrative assistant, which has also been budgeted, and then move forward on the role of the marketing communications person.
So that's two new. That's two new.
Yes.
The front office position, is that essentially like a receptionist?
It's administrative assistant, so they answer the phones, they greet the visitors, they take care of filing, they're basically what would be called support staff. Eventually, they would also be taking minutes and going beyond that. So the temporary that we're putting in place, we would put in place is to basically fulfill those tasks while we look for an administrative assistant, okay? And then the marketing person is there for a different role.
I have a question on the, because I know that when we had our interim, we didn't have a front office person. And so I don't really have a feel for how many of the 40 hours staff is physically in the office right now. Because I know there's been some work from home. Is that all behind us now and you're there 8 to 5 Monday through Friday?
I'm pretty much there every day unless I have an off-site meeting or, you know.
Because I noticed that there's a sign on the door that says that you have to call for an appointment. So I would assume part of what we're trying to avoid is being able to take that sign down because there would be somebody in the office all the time.
That was Ms. Young's suggestion. There are times that people will walk in and we don't know they're there because I'm in the back and there's nobody up front. We need somebody to be watching that door.
Okay, so I don't have any problems. I understand it's the same person, so what you're saying is we really do want to take the sign down, have a receptionist, while we look for a full-time person. We want to try to move forward with a temporary now. Am I understanding that one position correctly?
Yes, ma'am, that is exactly correct.
Okay.
Not only that, but if I remember right, I may not have the exact dates, but we've already talked about this last year and said that we really need to have these. Too many things got in the way of us accomplishing this. So we really need to move forward on this and go ahead and get started with finding those right positions. And I think it's a great idea. I mean, I would recommend that we go ahead and just do that. Have you bring the people in and let's start interviewing them and let's go forward. I don't know why we're not.
We can certainly do that. In addition to that, since we're using a recommended temporary agency that the city has used, we're actually got a contract that legal can review. That is the same contract that the city uses. And so, again, the idea here is alignment. We're following the same processes, the same methodology for this temporary person as well. In addition to that, Angela, I wanted you to can you also help related to the job description, working with the city HR department to ensure the job description, the pay scale, everything aligns with the city. So that way we're not stepping out of those parameters either.
HR has already approved the amended executive assistant job description. We're ready to go when y'all are.
Do we even need action at this point? Because I think everything's in the budget and everything's
Yeah,
ready to go.
I want to have
Head nods.
but I do want to discuss the second position, because I think we're talking about two different positions. So the temporary and hire an office receptionist, and the idea of the signs down and BDC's open for business 8 to 5 and the office isn't dark and people aren't walking in and Angela doesn't know that they're in all those things. We absolutely want staff to be safe and stuff. But I guess I have some concerns about the marketing person. We're changing what we approved several months ago, and we skipped the 3.9. My suggestion is that perhaps it would be better to have the marketing person, once we took a period of time to come up with a new strategy, so that we are clear on what we're marketing, because the reality is it's not like it was 5 years ago when we were having to actively market and people didn't know where Bastrop was. I mean, the part of why we need a receptionist is because people are coming by and that kind of thing.
Can I address that?
Sure.
So I'm actually thinking more of not a true marketing communications person. So this individual is responsible for the website, keeping it updated, current, aligning with the city to make sure that we're collaborating and that the information there is consistent. In addition to that, ensuring the fact that the successes that we're seeing in terms of what the BEDC is doing in conjunction with the city is promoted to actually get the right businesses to come in. Right now, there's almost no promotion related to the businesses that are coming in and the collaboration that is existing between the BEDC, the city, as well as the city council and that whole group. So the idea here is, if I'm a prospective business and I'm looking at Bastrop, what does Bastrop as a community offer me as a business? And so while I know that we have a lot of businesses who may be expressing interest in Bastrop, the idea here is to really market to the right contenders that we want to actually bring in. And the reason we want to do that is they're doing their due diligence. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Are the organizations working together? Are there good success stories? And so with that in mind, we need someone to help drive that.
Let me also add a comment here. I know that, again, sometime last year, I believe it was with our joint meeting with City Council, we talked about a couple of positions, and I think things have changed to the point where it's good that we have, if you will, 2 openings, and maybe we need to change a little bit about what those openings would entail. Who would be the right people to fill that? What slots do we need them to be in? So I understand, that we need to have. I also agree that by talking with what we're going to discuss later, could indeed have an impact on it. But I think we need to be flexible enough, is what I'm trying to say, is that if we need to change the description of the person, we still need to have more people. We need to have more staff. I mean, we just need to have more staff here. That's really the point, I think.
Mr. Chair, I'm in agreement. I believe an administrative assistant sit at the front desk so we don't have a closed office is advantageous to us as a community. I think we're somewhat putting the cart before the horse and taking some of the authority away from our prospective executive director to have them provide input on what staff that they may feel that we need. And I would prefer to defer that second position until we bring on a executive director.
Well, I understand that, but I think we need to take a look at what's really been taking place over the last half a year, if not longer, is that we've had an interim director, and we still don't have a replacement person for that. And the time, I think we can look at both of it. I mean, like I said, I think we should be flexible enough to take a look at what the skill sets that are needed and what we can utilize another person, whether it is a form of marketing that could later on change depending on who it is that it gets hired for the executive director slot. I don't disagree with you that an executive director needs to have a lot of leeway in what kind of position that they want, but between now and the time we get an executive director, if we don't have somebody doing some amount of work like updating the website and making sure that whatever kind of marketing information that we have is definitely in line with what the city is doing, that we're all on the same page with everything, I don't see a reason why we couldn't at least, get somebody in there to get started on it. And if it needs to change, it needs to change. I mean, that's what happens anytime you get a new boss, let's say, they have priorities that are gonna change it. So I would like to at least go ahead with both of them, with the understanding that it could very well change depending on when we get the executive director in there, or the CEO, whatever we want to call it.
Also, everybody needs to be cognizant, due to the hiring market that we're in, we are not going to find somebody tomorrow, I guarantee it. It's going to take some effort to actually find a talented person who is willing to come to Bastrop. And so that is a big consideration. That is definitely, we're competing against Austin and everywhere else at this point for highly talented staff. And our unemployment rate is 3.8 right now. And so that is a tough market. So as an employer of people, let me tell you, it is not easy to find people right now.
Well, I think that along those lines, I agree with you 100%. So I have two questions. One, thought Golden Shovel was doing things for our website, and maybe we need to relook at that contract, because if I'm applying for a job, I'm really interested in who my boss is. And so I think that can impact the recruiting, and we're asking a highly talented person to come in and not know who their boss is and not be sure what the strategy is. And there's some things about that that would make me nervous as an applicant. And so I'm proposing that if it's not already in Golden Shovel's contract, maybe amending the Golden Shovel contract with somebody who's already familiar with the information might be a good stopgap, just like the temporary receptionist until we get a final one. And Chair Spencer, that might provide, as we move forward, the most flexibility, because it's hard to turn that person into something else if they're already hired when you get here. So I'm just trying to kind of look at the big picture.
I like the idea. I think it's fabulous. I would love to see the contract, to look at it, quite frankly. I deal with marketing all the time. So I'd really like to see what's embedded into there and what their flexibility is and their cost associated with it. So
that could just be some immediate help, was just kind of what I was thinking about.
Very good, both sides, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly what I was going to say. Can we, Angela, can we get a copy, again, can you send a copy to both Jen and myself, and any other board member that wants to take a look at it, obviously?
I can.
Okay.
We do have a limited amount. For instance, they write one story for us a month, and that's what it's limited to. We could add on, but it will be on an as needed basis. They post for us on social media, but it tends to be repost, not something that we've come up with.
right, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Social media, also website.
But they may be
graphic
fulfilling the
design.
contract that we gave them, right? I mean, I hope they are.
I would
hope
say
we're
they
holding
are,
them
yes,
accountable for-
yes. But, if you want them to come up with our own social media posts, for instance, I believe that would be an extra.
Yeah, I would recommend that we continue on with them, number one. Number two, we take a look at the contract and then get in touch with them and find out what other services they may provide to see what it is that we can glean from that. And at the same time, we use them as a stopgap measure. I think that fits everybody's bill here, right?
Yeah.
Would be cheaper, I would assume, than hiring someone. No, not really?
No, it's a weird market.
Yeah, and I'll throw in also, I know how hard it is to hire people. We've been trying to hire people for a long time, and it is unbelievably difficult in today's climate, if you will, to hire folks out there. So, yeah, let's do that. I don't think we need any kind of vote or anything here. Let's just continue on. Okay, very good.
And then, Chair Spencer, I would also, and I'm sure that, Director Wall's planning on doing this anyway, when we are ready to sign contracts, it would sure be nice if they were in the packet so that we can all look at them. Your mic's not on.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, actually, so when we do executive session, I'm going to talk to the lawyer about the contract.
Mr. Chair, just on this item, let's go ahead and take action to authorize a representative of the BDEC to execute the agreement with HireQuest for the administrative assistant.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then, yeah, I'd like to go ahead and authorize Jen Wall to go ahead and execute the contract with the temp firm. Thank you. Appreciate that. Do it. Okay. Well, then we'll ask for a motion for that.
So moved.
Second. Anybody second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? All right. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, here we go. 3.11, discussion on a recent request from the city of Bastrop for a letter from the BEDC supporting the city's application for grant funding from the old Iron Bridge. And I'm going to ask Mayor Connie if she'll talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely, happy to do that. The city is in the process right now. We have contracted with Garver Engineering, and they are moving forward with a RAISE grant, R-A-I-S-E, and that will be turned in. The due date is April 14th. We'll find out in August if we've gotten the grant or not. And one of the things that they have asked us to do is to get letters of support. And I've already gotten them from Judge Poppy, from Senator Cornyn, from CapCog, from the Historical Society. There is zero commitment of money. Chair Spencer wanted me to say that extremely loud for all of the public. This letter of support is not expending any funds whatsoever. It's saying that the bridge is important to the community and that we would like an opportunity to have, that's a way to get some of those federal dollars back to the community as a part of that RAISE grant. So the EDC, it was one of the organizations that the consultant suggested would be a good idea, and Chair Spencer wanted to make sure that the board was aware of it before he signed the letter.
So
any questions?
Yeah, does anybody have any
Yes.
questions? Okay.
We talked about this in the past, the rehabbing of the bridge and the kind of the ballpark expenses. Any idea how much the city's going to ask for in this RAISE grant, or any idea how much of the total cost the type of grant would cover?
We aren't turning away a dime, so they're going to be using all of the most recent estimates that they have and asking for all of it. And then we start looking different places for different matching funds. So it's several $1 million.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not, there's not a request for the BEDC to put in money or that kind of stuff, so just everybody knows, it's not, nobody's
No
asking
bids
for money.
At this point for the construction or for rehabilitation? Not yet.
I didn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
No bids being put in for rehabilitation?
We're not to that
Not
step yet, yeah.
These sort of grants always, especially for community development or enhancement, always look for a diverse group to support those projects, and having diverse groups as a regional planning and our own local EDC signing letters of support is going to be tremendously advantageous to us securing this grant.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I'm happy to do this. In fact, we've got the letter here and I've signed it, so I'm just going to go ahead and hand it to you.
Yay, thank you very much.
I have an envelope if you need it.
And the envelope says.
Very
No,
kind of you.
That was last night.
We'll scan it and it'll come with the packet, but I'll take it from you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're not going to walk up and slap anybody. No, thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go to 3.12, receive update from BEDC staff regarding the industrial park infrastructure, TA Bastrop, Corix wastewater study, DRC meeting update, TEDC Economic Excellent Recognition Award, and staff training.
Hello, everyone. So I think I'm going to do the fun stuff first. I'm going to go around and go to the TEDC Economic Excellence Award. Congratulations. That means, again, that all of you participated in some training. Staff has participated in training. And we also, Angela and myself, both received our updated cybersecurity certifications as well. Thank you to the training that the City of Bastrop offers. Go back to this one. So the industrial park infrastructure, just wanted to give you guys a really quick update. Doucette is working on they launched kind of the kickoff of all of that, and they have their teams, they've got their geotech working to identify the pipeline, the depths of that, as well as they've got some surveying crews out there and a couple of kind of top-level items, no permitting needed, just to gather all of the data to start putting the true engineering pieces together. So that's great that that's kicked off. The Corix project, the wastewater study, We are kind of down to the final. We did meet again last month, and we will receive the draft at the end of this month. The goal is March 31st to receive the draft of that staff internally with the city and the engineers and everybody, we will all evaluate together. And once we get it to where all of the information is where we all feel comfortable that you all are getting what you have asked for, then they will start defining out that additional information and get that finalized between April 18th and April 29th, and then of which it will be presented to you at the May meeting. They will do about a 15-minute presentation with all of that information. So we're really excited that is, kind of coming to an end and tidying up all of the details. It's a lot of information. And like I said, the city team, as well as the BEDC team, the COREX team, and the the Kimley Horn team have all been a part of those conversations every month. So they've been great keeping us up to date on that. And then TA Bastrop, which is also known as Superglue, Project Superglue. They are moving forward, and I know Trey gave you guys a little bit of an update as to where they're at. I do believe they've got a call tomorrow to kind of hone in a little bit more on some wastewater questions and that sort of thing. So, hopefully we can keep that one moving forward. The DRC meeting updates, I do believe that I did update you all via email just to let you know that we as staff have asked to continue those conversations. We have been asked to not attend those any longer, so we will work with staff on our bi-weekly meetings to try to keep as up to date on our projects as possible, and where we need to be and what we need to be doing with those.
But again, to clarify though, if one of our development stakeholders wish us to join, then we can also.
Yes, so, for example, we'll just take TA Bastrop since they're up there anyways. If they ask us to the table and request that we be a part of those conversations or the DRC meeting or whatever, then yes, we would be able to do that. But the general weekly updates on the Development Review Committee, we've been asked not to attend those on a weekly basis.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe that is it for staff updates. Angela, yes? I didn't skip over anything, I don't think. So Angela is taking, I did skip over that one.
I'm multitasking over here, I'm sorry.
Yeah, skipped over a really good one. Angela is actually involved in an excellent program. It's a specific economic development finance program, and it's a lot more in depth than what either of us have taken through the IEDC or the Oklahoma University programming, and it had been recommended to both of us over the last couple of years, and now just kind of seemed like the right time to do it. So she is hanging on to that.
I'm going to explain why this is the right time to do it. This is the first time they've offered it completely online. So I don't have to travel, don't have to, stay the night, pay the hotel costs, any of that. So I had spoken to Ms. Young about it, and she said, go for it, because this is something that, it's a missing piece. It's that financial understanding in our office that we can sit down with a business, whether it's somebody that's brand new, or that they want to expand, or move into our region, somebody that understands financials and knows exactly what the banks are going to ask for. And so there are 4 courses. I'm only signed up for the first one, and before anybody asks me how I'm able to fit that into my otherwise busy schedule, I did 30% of it this last weekend. So, and I have 6 months to finish. There you go.
The other thing that I wanted to add to that comment about kind of the missing piece, but it also gives us that basis to really, since I've been here, and I know since Angela has been around, there have been very restrictive ways that we've used our money as an EDC. And one of the things that has been mentioned over the last couple of months is having the full ability from an economic development standpoint to use those financial options. So this is giving us that opportunity to really learn kind of that full scope. And I say we, it's really her. She just teaches me telepathically. But it gives us really kind of that basis in the office that is a stable situation to allow us to use those many different resources.
I really like the idea, especially for new businesses coming in, entrepreneurials. It's another service to provide companies who are coming into the area. And the services that we provide make our portfolio that much richer. So I really like the idea of being able to have those intelligent conversations with these businesses who, when you go to things like Capital Factory and the Austin Startup Crawl, most of those people don't have any idea how to do any of this. And so it's really nice to have that when you're meeting with them saying, hey, these are the things you need to think about if you're going to do this and do this successfully, rather than failing in 8 months or a year because they did not anticipate what it actually takes. So.
And that's actually a term that the two of us use all of the time when we're talking to small businesses is, making sure, one, that we connect them to the right resources that are beyond what even we are capable with full tools inside the office. But making sure that people understand that the reason we're telling you all of this and the reason we're kind of being strict and regimented about what we're telling you is we don't want to send you out the door and have you fail. Our job is to help you be successful, even if that's just providing resources and guidance. And so it is absolutely 100% spot on with that. So yes. Anything else? You guys gonna go in exit?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. All right, the Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will meet in a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, to discuss the following: Section 551.074, personnel matters, discussion on Chief Executive Officer position, and then Section 551.071, consultation with our attorney. Do I need to read the whole thing or just? Okay. Regarding the lawsuit filed by former Chief Executive Officer Cox against the Bastrop EDC.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just gonna, the Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will reconvene into open session to discuss, consider, and taking action necessary related to the executive sessions noted herein.
And then add 551.071, consultation with attorney for item 3.9.
Yes, oh, thank you very much, yes. Oh, and it is now 6:12. It is now 7:27. The Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will reconvene into open session to discuss, consider, and take any action necessary related to the executive sessions noted herein. So we are going to go back to Section 3.9, discussion and possible action on engaging a consultant to assist the BEDC in alignment with the City of Bastrop's economic development policy. So I'd like to hear a motion on that.
Yeah, I make a motion that, that we authorize the chair of the BEDC board, Chair Spencer, to enter a professional services agreement between the BEDC and Steve Weathers for consideration.
Second.
I will second that.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion carries. Okay. That is all that we have on this agenda.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor? All right. Thank you. Motion carries, adjourned.